been driving the F700 since Saturday, right? It's Wednesday evening, and the truck runs fine, drives fine, but it did develop a couple issues driving it every single day. So I've hauled the Explorer, hauled the Ranger, hauled a Jeep Cherokee earlier this summer, and it all went fine. Again, the truck runs and drives just fine, but developed a couple issues from those repeated commutes. So the theme today was going to be, can we daily a Dentside, right? Can we daily a 46-year-old truck? And the short answer is yes, but some things do come up, and some of it is due to old age. Old age can be erased to an extent, and some things just are some routine maintenance for this truck specifically, and some things are routine maintenance because, well, car needs maintenance. And being that it's an older vehicle, some of the maintenance intervals are a little different, maybe a little closer together. So we're going to take a little walk around the truck, and I'll show you kind of what it's like to daily a Dentside, especially when it's not restored. And then we'll look at revising some of the things, because tomorrow I'm going to be going to work again. It's about a 30-mile trip there and back, 30 miles there, 30 miles back. And I'm going to be coming home late and coming home in the dark. So we're going to just look at a few things, making sure that we'll do our due diligence to make sure we're not alongside the road. All right, so first things first, getting in the truck. It's still a work in progress, no headliner, no carpet, no door panels, but none of that's functional, none of that matters. I do have the original headliner. I want to redo it. I have the original door panels. I like to just fix those up a little bit. I was in the process of putting a stereo in it. That's why they got taken out. And I have a vinyl kit for it, but again, that doesn't get you to work. I want to pull the seats back out. These are just buckets out of a Ford minivan, 98 Ford minivan. These are the second row captain's chairs. But anyway, I want to pull these out, paint the floor, and put insulation down, and then put the vinyl kit in. But that's another day. But there's some of the things about the truck, right? This is a 78, but the dash is out of what I believe would be a 68 to 72. So a 68 to 72 be the bump side trucks. That's the dash that this has. So the gauges and the radio, that's flipped. The gauges aren't rectangular, they're round, right? And I have all of them. All the holes are filled. In here we have vacuum, fuel, speedometer, oil pressure. They all work. Temperature doesn't work, and the charging system doesn't work. This is alternator. I don't even know it's an ammeter or a voltmeter. But I have mechanical gauges, if you can see, the moon gauges, a volt gauge or voltmeter, and then an oil pressure gauge and a temperature gauge. They're mechanical, so there are capillary tubes that come through, well, the gas and then the oil from the little probes that go in the engine. And they're nice, they're reliable, they're dynamic, so they go up and down. I see oil pressure with engine RPM, engine temperature, you know, I can tell when the thermostat opens up. And then voltage, I can monitor 14 volts as a charging system, 12 volts as a battery. And that gets us to our first issue. This truck got a new alternator last year. The bearing had gone out in the alternator, and it locked up and burnt the belt up. And I have no idea how old that alternator was. It could have been original to the truck. I have no idea. But it has a new one. But I realized that the alternator bracket had shifted a little bit, and it misaligned the pulleys, and that wore the belt out prematurely, and I lost a belt on the way home. Ooh, Tuesday, it's Wednesday. Lost a belt on the way home Monday. And anyway, that was a hassle. Didn't want to deal with that. But the reason I was able to identify that was I saw the volt meter go from 14 to 12. No charging system. And that could be, you know, loose wires, bad connection or something, but it ultimately was the alternator wasn't spinning, which means that the fan and water pump wasn't spinning, and that I had to get to a parts store quickly and not stop driving the truck. So luckily that all worked out. This thing has a giant radiator and did okay. I had maybe a mile or so, mile and a half maybe, to roll it over to a Napa and then get a belt and put it on. But otherwise, everything that matters functions as far as wipers and lights and all that. But we do want to address the interior light. I stole the fuse from the interior light to get the wheel horse going for the barrel train over the weekend, and it's still in the wheel horse. So we do want to get a fuse back in there. We might try to relocate the fuse panel that I added. I did that in a hurry. So it's not really mounted very well. So we want to try to mount that, maybe lengthen one of the wires that goes to it and put it in a better location. But that'll give us our interior light back, and also it'll give us our power point back for a cigarette lighter, the phone charger, and all that. Now we're going to look under the hood. Alright, so we're looking at a 360 V8. Alright, it should be technically a 361 FT truck designation, but it's just an FE big block. It's a 360. That's what I was told. I never checked the bore, or I never checked the stroke on this to know if it's a 390 or a 360 or a 330, but I was told it was a 360, and that's what we're going to go with. They'll look the same from the outside, but this from the top down, it is a 4-barrel now. It has 4-barrel intake and 4-barrel carburetor. These are FE heads, not FT heads, so I was able to do that. This stuff's all painted. It is dirty looking now, but that was done a couple years ago. And one issue we have that's kind of a slow issue that doesn't really matter to me right now is a slow power steering leak. It doesn't affect the truck driving, but it does leak over time. You have to check that once in a while. And a valve cover leak. This valve cover started to leak more and more, and I'm starting to get oil dripping on the ground after I run it. So I'm thinking oil is getting pumped up to the top end of the engine, filling up the valve cover, and then leaking at the low side of the valve cover. Not a big deal. I mean, is what it is. It's a gasket. Could just need snug down a little bit, but I'll probably get gaskets for it. They're cork. I'll probably take them off and get gaskets and clean them up and put them back on. But there's the new belt. Right. I still want to rework that bracket and have the pulley alignment be a little better than it is, but it's not bad. It's really not bad at all. But that was our issue the other day. But right now, it's just not as spicy as it used to be. And that's just a few days ago. I'm thinking that the cap, because I had cleaned up the cap a few weeks ago before the trip to Carlisle truck show, and it ran real snappy, real well. Oops. But cleaned the contact, or actually no, I cleaned the points. All right, I cleaned the points contacts in the distributor, and I noticed that the cap was a little dirty. The contacts were dirty. And what I want to try tonight is a little bit of an experiment, and it could be a tip. It'll be a tip if it works. It'll be an experiment up until then. I'm going to use a Dremel and a very soft wire wheel and see if I can get in and clean the contacts on the distributor cap. But I'm going to go ahead and try to clean these with the Dremel, and then see if they clean up. If they shine up, then we'll put it on. If they don't, then we won't. if you can tell in the video there, the bottom 3 that I was working on, but they are cleaning up. So I'm not going to bore you with this. I'll clean the rest of them up and show you when they're done. But this is working. This is just a regular Dremel. Model doesn't matter. Dremel's a Dremel. This is a 3000, but I mean, it'll work in any Dremel. And I'm running about half speed, and it seems to be doing a job. I was concerned that it would scratch it and damage them. So this being that it's not even a metal brush or metal wire wheel, is just cleaning it, which is great. We will, or I will, spray this out with some WD-40 just to help prevent moisture from hanging in here. I'm pretty sure, I'm not the historian, but WD-40 stands for Water Displacement Formula 40, and this is what it's meant for. It's to keep water out of electronics. I don't know all the origin story of it, but I believe that's what it's for. So it's good at this. You keep kind of an oily residue in there, and if it does get a moisture buildup, it's not going to hang on any of those metal parts and then start to cause that corrosion process, right? So that has WD-40 in it. These contacts cleaned up pretty well. Then these contacts are fine. They are all nice and clean in here where the spark plug wires go. I'm not worried about them. Those are the wear points, and those are really the reasons why you get a new cap and rotor. I don't have a different rotor, so it'll be what it is. Then we'll see if this makes the truck run better. It's dark out now, so I'm actually going to put a pin in this for this evening. Well, I just sat down to edit the video of the 700 and realized that there might be a gap in the explanation. So I had needed to drive the 700 to work every day for a week, and then over the weekend I ended up fixing the Explorer and was able to drive the Explorer, and then um, just this past weekend here, I was working on the 700 again, just doing little tune-up stuff. It never had an issue. I just drove it Saturday. It's Sunday right now, and I just wanted to do little tune-up things here and there. And I had mentioned about the cap, the distributor cap. I did swap to the cap I cleaned previously in the video. You see that in the later part here. The picture of the 700 on the Explorer on the back of the 700, I had ran out of gas in the 700, so it didn't actually act up on me. It was my fault. I knew that I got enough gas for how many trips I needed to go to work, but I went to Wawa to get lunch, and that little detour was too much, and I didn't have enough to get home. And I was super close to the house too, but it all worked out. But then you see then later on, here I'm swapping caps and cleaning the points, and then I end up taking it out on the road, and it runs so much better than it did the week I was driving it, even though I didn't have much to complain about. Just overall, just snappier and smoother and everything. But then you also see here a delay. The truck didn't want to take throttle. It kind of just a little hiccup around 2,000 RPM when it was sitting there idling and then trying to give it gas. It was doing that a little bit Saturday, and it was weird because it wasn't acting up like carburetor tuning or dirt in the carburetor or ignition issue or anything. Well, it ended up being that it had a hole in the fuel line. It was sucking air. So I put all new fuel line on up around the pump when I put a new fuel pump on, but it has a section of a hard plastic line under the truck that just got a little hole wore in it, and I just fixed it. I cut out the area that had a hole and put in a repair hose barb, with clamps, which is not how I want it to be long term, but it is fixed and fine. But I will, I think, well, say I will change the whole fuel line from tank to pump. I would like to change that to a new hard line arrangement with the most minimal amount of rubber line I can get away with. But that's a little bit on what's missing out of the video here. But hopefully you see that the older vehicles are, while they seem to be fussy and finicky and need a little this and that more often, they're so simple. It doesn't take much to keep them happy. Um, that's why I enjoy having that truck and using that truck. All right, let's switch caps. These come off easy, they're just clipped on. But then, all right, so we're gonna swap caps. And it is labeled 1. There is a 1 on here. The cap only goes on one way, really. These wires, they're not that great anymore. They're kind of stiff, holding their, their position. Probably gonna want to change them. But one thing at a time. I just want to replace the cap with the cap that has the clean contacts. Then see how it runs. Also want to clean the points contacts. Now remember, one thing at a time. And then look at carburetor tuning. I'm just swapping all the wires that go to this side of the engine. A little easier that way. Haven't found any that were loose. That would be a big indicator why I would have like an intermittent issue. Something that's happening, but it's not happening all the time, which makes it harder to do. It makes it harder to troubleshoot. But I don't want to just throw parts at it. I don't have the money to do that, for one, and it's not really the logical thing to do. I want to find out what is wrong. That's what will teach us something. Anybody can go to Napa or whatever, or a Summit website and buy stuff and install stuff. But you want to know why. Why did it act up in the first place? Because none of that stuff might do anything if you don't solve the problem. this snapped on. Old cap, new, or old cap, clean contacts. I'll give this a shot. Alright, so I definitely think that that's better. This engine's still not getting any heat in it from before, but it did start easier because there's gas in the bowl of the carburetor. Should have been there just sitting overnight, but again, we'll address carb tuning later. Possible fuel delivery issue. But that definitely seemed like an improvement. Wasn't a waste of time to clean it, saved a lot of money saving it. I don't really see a new cap being any better than that. The only thing a new cap has to offer is clean contacts. I have clean contacts, I have a new cap, essentially. So now, I want to go get some, all I have that'll work for this is 400 grit sandpaper, right now. That's all I have. 400 grit sandpaper. I'll fold up a little piece of that and try to clean off the points contacts, and then... Alright, so we're just going to start by taking the air cleaner off. Probably needs replaced. Could be, now it's not wet now, but it could be that this got wet, the filter got wet and got clogged, and that's air restriction, so the engine is kind of going through a rich experience, even though the carburetor adjustment didn't change. Choke is open. This air cleaner doesn't look terrible. It's definitely dirty, it needs replaced, but nothing wrong with it. Alright. Huh. The choke plate is in the way of revving the engine. Alright, we're backing this. I took it in all the way to seat the needle. Now I'm going to back it out 1.5 turns. That's what the instructions say. That resets it. It was out probably 4 turns, so I think I'm going to change the spring. 1.5. So if that's all the further out it's supposed to be, then it was out a lot. So we're going to try to take that off and put a... They make a quick release pod for this, but I don't really see the need for that. This was set, like I said, it was set pretty good, but while I'm here, I might as well just reevaluate everything. Get that choke bracket and linkage out of the way. Then there's a plate. This is just kind of like bell crank linkage, I guess, and then we can get to the vacuum secondary pod. Nice thing with this, I mean, I don't really need that choke linkage. If I can hold this open, I don't even use the choke right now. I just have it open all the time. It's a mechanical choke, and I don't have it set up. I'd probably set it up this winter. This truck, the reason I got a mechanical choke is because this truck has, actually has a thing in the dash, to set the throttle speed, like for a PTO. Diaphragm, took this apart, right? The diaphragm in here is actuated by vacuum pressure or suction pressure, I guess. The spring overcomes the diaphragm, right? As the vacuum leaves, the spring opens the pod, moves the linkage, opens the butterflies, and ends up sucking gas in and more air and makes more power. And what I'm trying to do now is put a lighter spring on so there's less spring pressure for the vacuum to overcome. Hopefully they open sooner, more quickly, without this screw being backed out. Right, not really a big deal if the screw's backed out, but that seems like I'm compensating here. I want to have it set in the factory location and be a little closer, so I'm going to put a lighter spring on, right? Because I had this backed out in order to be fast, right? Open up faster. Well, that seems more like a spring issue than an adjustment issue. So it turns out this looks like the order by spring rate, and I had the softest one in. So that's kind of a bummer. Take it all apart and find that out. But it should have come with a plain spring, which I think is this one. And then it says that there's a purple. That's a standard. I thought it came with a purple though, because I have two purples. I think it came with a purple in it. Pretty, like 99% sure it came with a purple, because these feel like they're the same thing. Like I got one in the spring kit and one in the carburetor. Because I have a black. From what I can see, it's like a black, two plain, a long and short. This one has a hint of brown on it. This one's plain, and then two purples. This is like an orange color and a yellow. And based on the Holly chart, this one's softest, and it feels the softest of all these. These feel like they're in order, and they look like they're in order based on the chart, other than having what seems to be two of these. So we're going to put it back together and readjust the vacuum secondary pod. I'm going to open it further than it was, and we're going to see what happens. We're also going to tune the idle. I'd like this to idle a little better, so we are still going to look at that. Gotta make sure that this diaphragm lays flat. This is not a very good design, having to fight the spring and the diaphragm, the sandwiches together, and keep the holes lined up. Because the diaphragm, is the gasket, so that's just not a good design. This is not meant to come apart often. Which it shouldn't, which is fine. It doesn't have to be. They do make a quick release pod. I've never used one. I only ever saw that on Roadkill Garage. Freiburger's. What was that? His Roadrunner. When they tried to make that thing go from slow to less slow. Alright. And I am going to put this back to where I thought it was and then go past that point. And we're going to have to take it for a drive to really know how that has been affected. Does not have the best design carburetor, like, period. That's my opinion. Only after messing with the 4-barrel Motorcraft, which I liked a lot more, but the secondaries were sticking on it, so I didn't use it. I still have it, but stuff like this, where it just seems like you gotta sandwich things and hold things together with 3 hands, it's not the best. As far as tuning, Holleys seem to be the best, as far as, more so because they have so much parts availability. Now you can buy jets and springs and gaskets and things that you would need are more plentiful and easier to get at a local parts store or online. Doesn't matter. But as far as like disassembly and assembly, like even this, like taking this stuff apart, the fact that I take this apart, I'm gonna have a bunch of gas go all over everywhere. It's not designed very well. The Motorcraft has a top. You can take the top off the carburetor and see everything and not get gas on anything, which is pretty nice. Alright, we did nothing yet. Let me put it back. So that's 1.5, 2.5, 3.5, 4.5, 5.5. I don't know if that's gonna do anything, but we're gonna try it out. This is long because this air cleaner was supposed to be temporary. The air cleaner this runs with, I couldn't find a filter for, and it's real big, real tall. I already cut this rod down. to make sure we're not alongside the road.